Welcome to our program, Coach to Coach. Today's guest is Deborah Lewin. Deborah is both a licensed therapist and a transformational coach, uniquely blending the restorative power of therapy with the expansive, forward-focused energy of coaching. This means she can walk with you through the tender work of healing the past, if needed, while also guiding you toward the inspired work of creating your future. Deborah's path has woven through professional theater, writing, fine art, yoga teaching, and dream work. These experiences taught her that healing and growth are not linear. They are creative, embodied, and soulful. They require presence, imagination, and a willingness to listen to the deeper language of the self. Thank you for joining us today, Deborah. It's so great to see you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. So the way I like to start these discussions off is to ask what first sparked your interest in coaching/therapy?
Well, kind of two different questions,
Mm,
but it started from the very beginning. My father was a psychologist, and I think one of my first toys was he had a little suitcase, and inside were little, dollhouse things and little dolls, and it was a mom and a dad and kids.
mm,
And I think that was one of my first toys. I remember that. But then by the time I was in college, I studied literature and then uh, became an actress and then moved into writing and became interested in other things. While always interested in psychology, I did other things. I sowed oats and then found my way back to it. And before I actually went back to school, so that I could hang my shingle as a therapist, I became very interested in dream work
mm.
and, just was reading Jung for fun, because I'm a big nerd. And I had many, I became just so fascinated with dreams and would go to weekends, like beautiful weekends with some extraordinary dream workers, not Jungi, not Freudian dream interpretation, not analytic, but it was my introduction to really the world of spiritual workshops and things like that. And I learned to look at dreams in an interpretive way, and it was very, very creative. And I think that began to ignite my interest in soul work. And again, you know, psychology, psyche, soul, that's what it means. It's from the Greek soul. And that's so often lost in the way people practice psychology today, I think. Um, but I became a therapist and loved the work so much. Oh, but I missed, before I became a therapist, I trained as a yoga teacher. So I became very interested in um, just the body's response. So, and there's somatic psychotherapy is a big thing these days. Um, how does it feel in your body? And so I was very attuned to what ultimately then became a huge focus on the nervous system, you know. So it was kind of an organic unfolding. Um, but then after doing therapy for a while and loving my clients and loving the creativity of the process, I realized it was probably around COVID. I don't know that just I was finding my, and it was probably before then, but I was finding my inspiration in my therapy work, inspiration from coaching sources. And you and I met during a weekend that Jamie Smart gave quite recently that was so beautiful. And a question that you and I both agreed was really potent was, what's your philosophy of transformation? And I realized I was so inspired by people like, even, for example, like the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. I used to tell my clients, you don't need to read the book, just read the book flap. And it was, be impeccable with your word, don't take things personally, don't make assumptions, and always do your best. So there was this sort of a philosophy of human behavior, one could say. That was one of my first entrees to this is not just about cognitive behavioral therapy, manualized, And I really found that the coaching sources that I was drawn to were asking the questions that made the work much deeper. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, uh, ask me a question. I feel I've
Yeah.
gone
Well, so
off.
I mean, the thing that occurred to me when you were talking about dream work, I mean, the
Mm,
first thing that occurred to me is uh, I'm probably ignorant in knowing what that even means. But what else occurred to me, I mean, you kind of explained it with how you qualified it with reading Jung and talking with Freud and all this kind of stuff. So I could kind of piece it together. And then I thought, oh, as a coach, I'm kind of in the dream work business because with the question I'm always trying to get to with my clients is, what would your dream come true result be? Like I'm literally working with people on them making their dreams come true. So
that's so fun. I hadn't even made that connection. I'm literally talking about dreams that you have at night,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
subconscious. But
Yeah.
oh, that's going to be a fun train of
Yeah,
thought for me
yeah,
going forward.
yeah. I mean, what I found recently is with many of the people I talk to, um, this probably isn't true, but they haven't really allowed themselves to dream about what it, they don't really have a good answer when you first ask them that question, because
Mhm.
they're thinking about mostly what they don't want
Exactly,
and not what
exactly,
they do want. Um,
exactly.
so it's a very powerful question. But yeah, I'd love to hear more. And I don't know if you want to focus, if you think about your practice kind of holistically, like therapy and coaching, like we said in the intro, or focus more on the coaching or more on the therapy. It's up to you. But I'd love to hear more about your practice and kind of the types of people you're working with and helping, and how you do that. I mean, you already alluded to asking great questions like, what is your was your theory or your philosophy of transformation? But
Mhm.
and more about your practice would be amazing.
Well, one thing, I love that you eyeballed my website, and one thing you picked up on was something that I had, said about uh, my job is to guide you to better questions,
Mm,
that you ask yourself, and I do really believe that my or one of the best parts of my job is coming up with questions, not answers. I don't have answers about your life, you do,
yeah.
but my job is to, facilitate. I'm thinking now of like Jamie's, create the conditions for
Mm,
you to have an insight. I'm not here to have insights on your behalf.
yeah.
Every so often I might, and they're fun. But what's important is not how smart I sound, but how connected you feel.
Mm,
So I have, my at the time, I feel like I should have this 30-second elevator speech of my ideal client is, but uh, I started just having a general practice, and you want to, people who resonate with my website, for example,
mm,
who are referred to me. I'll work with anyone who's a good fit. I tend to think, oh, I love my middle-aged depressed ladies, bring them on.
mm,
But it's, I also adore my young women who are anxious, and my,
yeah.
my men who come in hoping to not get divorced. I kind of love them all because the magic is you sit and it's like, who are you? Who are you? What, you know, there's that question of what's coaching and what's therapy. And I think about this all the time. And in a nutshell, therapy is historically, anyway, it's about healing. And coaching is more generative. What do you want to create? And I do love that. But I also think, like, I think of myself as a therapeutic coach
Mm,
because I will never not have my training, which I'm proud of and love my therapy training. The profession, I have my, icks about, but and coaching has a stigma sometimes from therapists, and I happen to not feel that. But I don't know that I'd feel comfortable doing the type of coaching I do with, because without the therapeutic training. Um, but the medical model of you're broken is another almost like meme of therapy, And I've never felt that, even before it became meme worthy,
Mm,
before there was social media, even.
mm,
You know, I I would say to clients, I don't think you're broken. And a lot of clients, especially my first job was in a community mental health clinic where, you know, some people come in and that's sort of their main activity in their life is going to doctors. And it's hard to not feel broken when that's your life, But I don't feel I don't feel people are broken, and I notice I don't know if I'd call it a trend, but that some people identify so strongly with what's wrong with them that the first work is disentangling their grip
mm,
on what's wrong.
yeah,
And so coaching, I think I'm drawn to it because people come from a sense of something is so glorious and right, and I want to let it out.
yeah,
And that's sheer joy to be a part of.
mm,
And that can happen, I think, more often and more freely and more quickly in the coaching realm.
yeah, yeah.
Does that
Because
make
you
sense?
remind me of something Jamie often says, which is, although coaching isn't therapy, it can sometimes have a therapeutic effect on
Absolutely.
people. So, somebody has an insight, and that insight brings along with it healing, because they
Yeah.
see something completely different. He often plays a video of them collapsing buildings, when they're building a new football stadium and they got to get rid of the old stadium and they set charges around the perimeter or whatever, and then the gravity does all the work, but it's basically these small charges go off, the structure is destroyed, and boom, it comes down. And that's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what an insight is like. The structure of our beliefs all of a sudden poop 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 poop, like those little charges go off, and then it can't stand up anymore. It
Yeah.
collapses, and then there's kind of it's always like a big cloud of smoke and bringing down a building, or a big cloud of dust. But I've some in my own life too. When I've had an insight, it's almost felt like that, like that old belief has just collapsed and debris is everywhere.
Yeah. 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 I love that. And we mentioned this earlier, but another Jamie quote. And yeah, sometimes an insight is, oh my God, my head was up my bum just then.
Mm,
And I love that,
yeah,
and another way of working with people, which is you ask, what kind of people do I
yeah,
work with? And I I like having fun.
mm,
I do. I like laughing. And I've had, there's nothing better than a therapy laugh,
mm,
and and so I can't say there's a particular type of person I work with, but I'm thinking of a couple of people I'm working with now, and they are therapy clients, but I've moved into broadening to in a way that it feels coach like to me.
yeah,
And one of the things I love to do is I will create, I'll record guided visualizations bespoke to, the what is needed.
yeah,
And I have found that for the people who like this, that's very potent
mm,
of, finding basically it's an extended metaphor
yeah,
to maybe it's, an extended metaphor that creates the conditions for insight, but
mm,
that's been quite successful sometimes
yeah,
with certain people. So I just love doing that. And maybe that's my, create, for me, that feels very creative.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
and it's,
the thing that's occurring to me with that is the power of helping people slow down. Right. It's there's something about the slowed down nature of meditation
yes.
that creates that condition for insight.
It's funny. That made me think I have this. They're probably quite common now, but I've had it for a very long time. It's just a tone. And I have one of my clients who's a musician said, I think it's the tone of A. I'm not. I love working with musicians, but I'm not one. And if someone comes in and they sit down and they're just, and this, and they start, and I'll just say, I think we need a tone. And I'll just, play the tone and it lingers in the air. And it's just, just listen until you can't hear it anymore. And then I'll say, so what what feels important? And then we start. So it's we needed that
Yeah,
moment
yeah, love it.
of coming to the same, literally the same vibration because this
Yeah,
note is lingering in the
yeah,
air.
yeah. I like that. Yeah, I'm always you know, this is not some people think it's a negative word. I'm always looking for hacks, like what are these little kind of fun things you can experiment with, and when they work, they work. When they don't, whatever, move on to the next one. But yeah, it's amazing when you do something like that and it connects with the person for whatever reason. It can be very powerful.
Yeah. Literally, and actually Jamie said that he thinks like the three principles work is energy work, and I completely agree.
Mm,
I think that, a successful therapy session or coaching session, you're literally either raising the vibration, it's like a higher frequency, or if you feel different at the end, then
mm,
you've worked the energy.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's yeah. I mean, at a fundamental level, we are energy, so it makes sense to me. So I'm curious if you had any examples top of mind of how your coaching has made a difference for somebody, or how coaching has made a difference for you that you'd like to share one or two stories on.
I would love to. It's fine, but I'm thinking of, for example, there's one client with whom I share a lot of, or have shared several guided visualizations, and
Mm,
um, I really think that perhaps it was just the growth of the trusting relationship. Because it's said, in therapy, no matter what technique or strategy or modality you use, rapport is I don't know, it's like 70% or something like
yeah.
that. That's what matters. Um, but the difference is, when someone comes in with an old story, and I am, if you will,
Mm,
that I am not good enough, I am too much, too big, too loud. And through work, through the magic of talking, and you and I talked about this, that saying something aloud, there's the
mhm.
beautiful, it's so funny that I'm going to say her name. I don't know who she is, except that she's Jamie's beloved Emma McDevitt,
Yeah.
nothing to prove, nothing to hide. And if you reach that level of rapport with someone and they can speak their truth, and it's no longer stuck in their body, and it's between you, and there's no shame
Mm,
because there's no judgment, it changes. It
mm,
shifts. The energy shifts. And so when someone has an old story, usually that they've made very shame-based meaning out of,
mm,
and then they realize, and maybe this is an insight, they realize, wow, that's not there anymore. That heaviness, that anxiety,
mm,
that belief, I'm a horrible person because I did this or this happened and it meant that, and no one can love me because,
mm,
and it's they see that it's not true anymore.
yeah.
And that just gives me chills, and it's the most beautiful thing. And they can see their own beauty. So, in terms of a personal story of how coaching has helped me, I have this very recent one from the beautiful work that I feel so privileged to have been involved with this it was just a couple weekends ago.
Mm,
The weekend with uh, Jamie, the Advanced Coaching and Therapeutic Wizardry.
Yeah.
Love
There's
that.
a title.
Therapeutic Wizardry. Um, where two insights that have just stayed with me. One, it's really, there's like spoiler alert. I'll do the gift of it was, the delight and freedom of resting in the ordinary.
Mm,
And it felt like, and I'm still resting in it. It feels like when I think of it, like I'll do it right now. Okay. So just, I swear, I think of that moment of that, he basically said, I extend the invitation of, just rest and being ordinary. And I was like, okay. And it was like champagne bubbles.
mm,
It was like swimming with dolphins in like dolphin charged magic waters. And I just thought, oh. So the insight I had was nothing to hide, nothing to prove. I am ordinary.
mm,
And and what that means is, oh, I'm human.
mm,
Oh, and if I accept that I'm human, that is a membership card to the most deep level of connection that there is.
mm,
Because everyone's human.
mm.
And again, I don't know if words can quite express it, but that was powerful, And what came before that was, the idea of uh, if there's anything that gets in my way most, it's if I let my ego image, whatever my ego, some image I have of myself get in my own way.
Mm,
That was sort of the discussion that was
yeah.
really it was teased apart by all these brilliant people who were at the weekend.
Mm,
And I understood really for the first time, or I had a feeling, an insight of, oh, that's what that is.
mm,
It's an image that isn't even real that I'm thinking is important.
mm.
And that was a big load off. And it stayed with me. And we'll see where that takes me. But did that answer the question
Yeah,
of,
I love it. Love
yeah,
that answer.
yeah.
Um, the next question, some people find this easy, some find it difficult, but if there's one thing that you'd want people to take away from this conversation, what would that one thing be?
Can it be a multi-part one thing? Or
Sure.
there's a
There's no
couple things
rules
that
here.
are, yeah. No, thank God. Um, this is something you brought up, too, and I think it came up during the weekend of people tend to, when you say, what do you want to
Mm,
create? People tend to reference what they don't want. And so I would love to, help people. And I often ask, well, that's what you don't want. What do you want? And
mm,
it's a tough, and to myself, I ask that too. So I want to leave people with the notion that I believe that, all people are creative. Some people
mm,
think they aren't. Everyone is. And to me, the most creative act is just architecting your own life.
mm,
So everyone is or either is already or has the potential to be a genius
mm,
creator, just the way you choose to live your life. And Jamie asked a question, it's the miracle question. And we learned this in therapy training as well. But, if a miracle happened and you woke up tomorrow morning and everything was as you wish it could be, what would that be? And even before you open your eyes, and I remember my immediate answer was, I would feel connected and I would feel a sense of belonging.
Mm.
And Jamie said something, and this is also, I think it's up there on the level of life changing. He said that, those are two things, connection and belonging. But the important thing is that, connection is a fact and
Mm.
belonging is a fact. You belong to life.
Yeah.
But the feeling of connection, the feeling of belonging, that's going to ebb and flow.
Mm.
And I was like, ah. So when I feel disconnected, that's just, one of those, pay attention to the wisdom of the symptom.
Mm.
What might you be thinking? Why are you orienting towards something that lets you feel disconnected? But that idea that connection and belonging always 100%, like the sun at night, it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And that was such a beautiful and comforting thought. And he added that the sense of belonging can only be felt if you allow yourself to truly be seen.
Mm.
And that takes courage. I don't know, in my
Mm.
book. And that was so uplifting. That just that thought that like the sun, connection is always there.
Yeah.
And it's normal that it will ebb and flow, but you can learn and choose to be in ways that make it felt more often.
Mm.
And I would love to leave people with that.
It's great.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about what you're up to or get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
For now, just my website, which is deborahlewincounsel.com.
Great.
And and maybe someday I'll figure out social media, but for now, website.
Awesome.
So
Well, Deborah, I've loved this conversation. I've loved getting to know you a little bit better before we hit record as well. So it's been great to see you, and I hope to see you again soon.
yes, likewise. Thank you so much, Greg. This was
Yeah,
terrific.
my pleasure. Take care.
Take care.